one of the things I like best about this size of group is because it can be very interactive. And so I encourage you as we go through the morning to feel free to stop and ask questions, maybe to challenge something that you hear me say, or just to talk about or get clarity if you have any problems as we go through the morning. Last week, and I kind of want to start out with this story because I think it's related. Last week, before I went to the administrative office, I used to be the chief probation officer in Omaha. And last week, a probation officer got a tip that one of her young offenders was using drugs. So with law enforcement, they went to the house to check to see if, in fact, that there were drugs there. And upon arriving at the house, sure enough, there was a meth lab. And in the process of trying to secure the perimeters around this meth lab, the officer picked up a bag which she assumed was drugs, and in the process of opening it and looking at it, was overcome by fumes. Unfortunately, or I should say first of all, fortunately, she was not injured whatsoever. Upon inhaling the fumes, she got dizzy, nauseated. They did take her to the hospital and check her out, but she's perfectly fine. The reason I tell you that story is I've now been in the system, been in the criminal justice system and the juvenile justice system for some 31 years. 31 years. But the reality of it is that I can guarantee you, 31 years ago, it never would occur to me to worry about one of my staff inhaling fumes from meth. Never would have occurred to me. And 31 years ago, I thought I was pretty smart. I tell this story because the whole idea behind evidence-based practice is this kind of fundamental foundation about how do you know what you're doing is making any difference whatsoever. My guess is if I went around the room and asked each of you, why did you get into the business? While some of you may say I needed a job or that's what I wanted to do, many of you would say I wanted to make a difference. And so I would think if you came into this system wanting to make a difference, it would be important for you too to understand this fundamental premise behind evidence-based practice. I would also guess, in our technical clicker isn't working, so I'm going to have to do this by hand. I would also guess each of you probably fall into one of these three categories. Think about this. Which one do you fall into? I'm confident that I understand evidence-based practice and effectively using EDP. I think I understand EDP and using it in our program, or I'm not sure I know what EDP is and just happy to have a program. Does that pretty much fit everybody in here? One of those three? Well, my hope is by the end of the day, you're going to fall into one of these three places. Either an affirmation saying, yes, I thought I knew evidence-based practice, and everything I heard today just affirmed what I already knew. So it'll be a confidence builder that you're on the right track. Or, I thought I was, and in fact, we are doing evidence-based practice, so I feel a lot better. You feel kind of confirmed about what you're doing. Or a realization that, you know what, I didn't know what I thought I knew, so maybe I need to rethink it a little bit more. So as we take this journey down evidence-based practice, I hope that you really discover something new today. This idea of evidence-based practice has really evolved over the last 20 years, and actually probably closer to 25 now. It has, in the beginning of the kind of evolution of evidence-based practice, we had scientists saying to us, listen to what we have to say. We can tell you something about your population. But unfortunately, those of us in criminal justice 25 years ago were saying, what do you academics know about criminal justice? You're not in the field. You don't do it every day. And we didn't listen. We weren't very good at listening. So this whole idea of embracing evidence-based practice has really come about in the justice arena just in the past few years. Probably 10 years or less. And what we did discover is there was a lot of evidence that if we were paying attention to it, we really could make a difference about what we were doing. I also use the analogy of a doctor. And what I mean by the analogy of the doctor is that if you had a significant member of your family that was ill, would you remotely go to a doctor that said to you, I've been practicing medicine for 30 years. I know exactly what I'm doing. Don't worry about those newfangled medicines. Don't worry about those newfangled machines. I know exactly what your person needs. Would you want to go to a doctor like that? Or would you want to go to a doctor that said, I know the latest and greatest in the medicine. I know exactly what will work for your loved one. We would want no less for someone that we love. Why would we want any less in our own business? It's critical. It's absolutely imperative that we understand what the evidence is telling us about programs. So as we talk first this morning, we're going to take a really, really kind of global look. I want you to pretend that you're up there looking over your whole world and how it evolves. And with that kind of global look, we'll start to narrow our spectrum down in terms of those kind of elements that are important. This particular model that you see here is a model that has been created by the National Institute of Corrections and in conjunction with the Institute Justice, and has been the model that's probably the foremost model in evidence-based practice, and is the one most recognizable and most researched. So when you think about programming from that $35,000 fee, 35,000 feet spectrum, you have to first understand this really big picture about when we talk about evidence-based practice, what is it that we're talking about? What is it that means? So this is the practice in relationship to the evidence-based practice. The first thing that the evidence tells us, the science tells us about programming, is that there's three critical elements to a good program. The three critical elements to a good program is this organizational development, this collaboration, and this evidence-based principles. So we're going to talk about each of those separately to make sure that you kind of understand the foundation of those.